you're kind of awesome enough to go by first names only. So I just thought we would have you guys go down and, in your own words, I guess, introduce yourself, but talk about, I think more importantly, if there's a sentence or two that defines what you're going for in the world right now, what you're looking to create in the world.
Ooh, that's a big one, isn't it? Oh, is my mic? Everyone feel good about my mic? Yeah. So my name's Iskra. If we're going by second names too, it's Lawrence. And I would like to say that I'm trying to build a world where everyone knows their real power. And if I can just bring that out in people in any way, that is my aim, to make people realize how special and unique they are.
Awesome.
Oh, thanks. Cheers to that.
I would love a water, Al. Thank you. All right, Aly.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Aly. Thank you guys all so much for having me today. Thanks for coming. I would say right now, I am focusing on, I've learned I'm very passionate about encouraging other people to speak their truth and to be the best version of themselves, but I've learned that I can't encourage other people to do that if I'm not practicing that myself. So I'm working on taking time for myself every single day. Someone once told me if you don't have 5 minutes in your day, you need to take a full hour. Because if you imagine if you don't have 5 minutes for yourself every single day, then you're really, really busy. And I understand everyone is so busy, but it's so important to value that time and that self-care every single day. So imagine if everyone in the world took care of themselves every single day. I think we'd live in a much more loving and a better world. So I think that's where I'm at right now, is just encouraging people to get to know themselves more and to take that time. And then if you get to know yourself more, you can speak your truth and feel more confident in doing so.
So beautiful. I'm back. I really didn't know it would be this back-to-back. I'm so sorry. I'm Cleo, and for me, my mission is mostly to create a world where people feel less alone. I don't think that it is an accident or a mistake that we are all here together at this moment in history. I don't think that we are a mistake. I think that all of us are here together on purpose. And because of that, I think it's so important that we get to know each other and understand how much we belong to each other. We really are our sisters' keepers, and the more we're able to see each other as not just neighbors, but family, then the more we are able to build a beloved community and a beloved world.
Now do you see why we wanted to be in conversation with these beautiful souls this morning? So in that introduction, we talked a little bit about the work that I do in sort of changing industries or changing perceptions within industries. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
That's never happened that I had. Changing perception so that everybody fits. And so I want to start, Iskra, with you, and I want to talk about your journey of shifting and transforming the modeling industry, not just the industry at large, but for you to take part in a dream within an industry that initially did not have a space for everybody to fit. And so can you talk just a little bit about your journey in disrupting an industry while pursuing what you love? Because I don't know if anybody here can relate to that. You know of an industry you want to get into. It may not be set up in the way that you want it to be. Mm-hmm. How do you both pursue a dream and also keep true to who you are?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and it's one that I'm so grateful that I've had to figure out, because I wouldn't be here if I did fit. Right. If I had just fitted, and if I had just had the straight path and I wouldn't be the human I am today, and I wouldn't have had to create that space for myself and for others to then, follow through as well. So I was in a position where I entered a modeling competition when I was 13. I took the photos when I was 12 because I was so desperate to be part of it. And I didn't win. I got into the finals, but I was scouted. When the agency then took me on board, they were measuring me. I was doing shoots and I was doing runways, and I wasn't fitting into the clothes. And this sample size is literally the gatekeeper to the modeling industry. If you don't fit that sample size, you can't be a model, like end of, full stop. So I ended up getting dropped. At a time when I'm like 14, 15, my body is going through puberty, I'm changing, I'm questioning so many things about myself. So the most simple thing was, well, there's something wrong with me, something wrong with my body. I don't fit into what they're saying I have to, so I have to try and change myself. And that is one of the most damaging things that you can do to yourself, because you can't change who you are, and you shouldn't be trying to change it because you are perfectly imperfect. They're the problem. The sample size is the issue, not me. So I had to reclaim that and understand that no matter if I got told, and I did get told hundreds and hundreds of times, no. I got laughed at. I got fat shamed in public when I was doing a show, when I was naked and I couldn't fit into the clothes. And I had to realize that even though all of these people told me no, how do I figure out and build my own path? How do I prove them wrong? How do I say that actually that's the problem, not me? And I think that that is so relatable in so many different industries. So my kind of main mission from experiencing that personally, and then actually having an eating disorder and really punishing my body, my well-being and my mental health to try and fit this like unrealistic ideal, is that when we reclaim that and we realize that we're meant to be different, that is exactly why you will succeed. Because if you're doing your own thing in your own lane, no one else is competition. That beauty idea doesn't exist for you. You're just you. And by proving that over and over again and showing people that I truly believe in myself, even if you don't, that is how you will break through.
Yeah. And I think for anybody who's ever challenged a systemic barrier or looked at a career path and couldn't quite imagine themselves there, it's actually quite also a lonely experience, right?
Well, you're kind of taught if you cannot see, you cannot be.
Right.
And it's very hard to imagine that, because we're told, look up to this person. Who's your idol? Who's your hero? Who do you want to be like when you're older? The most radical thing is being like, well, I want to be me and I want to do it my way.
Right.
I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm just going to keep following that, and I swear I'm going to do it. And then that inspires everyone else to do the same too.
But what I love about being in relationship with you and a friendship and working with this is that we also talk about the darker parts of that piece, right? That passion and that mission of changing things comes at the cost, too, of sometimes questioning and feeling isolated. Or, Cleo, we look at people online all day, every day, this wallpaper of stories that seem successful and seem inspirational. And I think all of us kind of play the tape of where we compare to those stories. And you gave a beautiful TED Talk about this simple act of changing the world through caring, which in a very busy, hustle-focused universe seems somewhat antithetical at times, right? Because caring is an internal, sensitive, quieter sort of pathway, for people's experience. But talk a little bit about the booth that you've created, the movement and the conversation that you're making about tapping into how people can be more caring and why that's so important.
I think it's also about getting into spaces where you can show care as yourself. I think, what's so amazing about the online world is that you can get to know people. I mean, you can know about these amazing women and know more about their lives because you can follow them online. That said, the online space is also a place where people have created a manufactured version of themselves and then put that online and then are telling you that that person is real, and then inherently, because either they have a lot of followers or they make a lot of money or whatever the ways that society is praising them for this kind of manufactured being, you're kind of thinking, okay, should I be trying to be more like that? But then at the same time, you're like, but that's not real. Mm-hmm. And it's very confusing. And I think it leaves us all in a very lost space. Yeah. And so I think that a lot of it has to do with, the thing about caring for other people is that you can't care for anyone else well if you can't first care for yourself. And I always tell people that the first thing you can do in caring for yourself is, one, know you deserve it, and B, create simple ways to care for yourself. One of which is, I always say, have a really strict social media diet. Mm-hmm. So I think that when you can go to an online space and be like, that feels healthy for me, that doesn't. And that doesn't mean that every now and again you don't binge on a Kardashian or the Shade Room or something, because that happens. But you can really treat that like, the other foods you might eat sometimes that aren't life-affirming. I mean, In-N-Out's pretty good, but, we can't eat it every meal. And so I think that
we can't.
but we want to. And so I think that when you create a space where you're like, ooh, like when I go through my feed, it feels like it's giving me things that when I ingest them, I feel good about who I am, or I feel like I'm learning something, or I feel like I'm seeing someone who's going through life experiences that I can relate to. That's a very simple way to care for yourself. And I think another way to care for yourself and to care for others is to go into communities in real life and connect with them. I think that that's why spaces like this are so critical, because when you get in front of someone, it is so much easier to really establish a connection and really make a good friend in that moment and share vulnerability and share empathy and share compassion. And a lot of the times that can be a little hard online. I think you can collect a lot of people online, but you can get really thorough connections offline, which is why it makes me so proud to be a part of the Aerie family, because we do so many events in real life because we know the importance of being able to make that friend and make that connection.
And by the way, I would be remiss to not mention that if a liftoff from some of these conversations is what you're craving, Aerie has created actually something called Aerie Real Life online that has this content strewn through, so that after a conversation like this, if you're looking for more, Iskra and I have done some work, Aly and Cleo have wonderful work on there. There's a way to continue to provide resources, because I think to combat some of the loneliness or to combat some of the not quite sure how to make a path in an industry, we need real tips, real tools, but I think real modeling, right? Modeling of behavior and examples. And Aly, I don't know of anybody in sort of recent time that has been more of an example of courage. In fact, you were just awarded the Arthur Ashe Courage Award, which is fantastic, yes. And that place of courage came from a dark space that many people struggle with and shield. And you have turned that experience, at least from the outside, it looks like you've turned that experience into being able to use your voice to shine some light into that darkness for other people. And so I want to talk a little bit with you about what it has felt like to become more of a public advocate for some of the suffering that you've experienced, and a way to shine light for people to know that they're also not alone.
I think that I am in a much better space than I was, even when myself and so many, there was hundreds of us that received the Arthur Ashe Award. The last year, from the moment that I think I first shared my story publicly in November of 2017, just that whole year, I was blown away by the amount of support that I got. I never imagined it. It's obviously very scary sharing your story and speaking your truth, which is really sad. We shouldn't live in a world where it's scary to speak your truth, especially when somebody else hurts you. But I never imagined all the support that I would get, and so for that, I'm forever grateful for that. And I think right now what I'm working on is really just taking time to really reflect on everything that has happened, because it's been such a whirlwind and so overwhelming and so unlike anything I could have ever predicted. And so I've been really taking time and really working on myself. I've done a lot of therapy in the last couple of years, but really specifically a lot more in the last year. And I feel a lot more confident in myself from doing the therapy, but I still have so much more to go. I think life is a journey, and I think I'm so much more open to new connections and meeting new people, and I've learned you can learn so much from just sharing your stories and listening to other people. I feel so much more educated just from hearing, I have so many fans that come up to me and share their stories with me, and just to hear different people's experiences of what they've been through and how they've overcome it or how they are struggling. I think it's really amazing to hear that. And so, my advice is you guys are all here today, and so don't be afraid to make new connections and to make new friends, because odds are you guys are a lot more similar. We all are a lot more similar, I think, than we imagine. Everyone in the world is battling something. Maybe if you're going through a great time right now, that's awesome. Maybe somebody else here is going through a tough time, and maybe you could help that person or that person can help you. But I think one of the things I've learned in the last year about myself is I'm so much more open to meeting new people, making new friends. And so here, this is a safe place. And I think everyone in this in this space can agree, you know, if you're here, you're obviously passionate about taking care of yourself, about growing, about being a better version of yourself. And in my opinion, that's the people I want to surround myself with. So this is a pretty cool group of people to be around. So don't be afraid to make new friends, because you can help each other out. And if you know, you're afraid to speak about something you're going through, you don't have to unless you're comfortable. But I think you're going to find that a lot more people can relate to you than you can imagine. And as you talk about, you know, you're not alone. I know sometimes it feels like that, but just remember, I think everyone can relate to feeling alone. But I can tell you from sharing my story, you're going to be surprised with how many people can relate to you, but also how many people will support you. And, you know, if you speak up, somebody might have gone through something similar and can help you get through what you're going through.
One of my favorite things about Aly is that she's the first one to be like, yeah, okay, give me your number. Like, she's always has her phone out ready to take your number, and you're like, okay. And so I will say that you could be a little bit more like Aly and be like, if you're vibing for like 2 minutes, she'll be like, yeah, this is great. Okay, give me your number. And then she'll send you a text like right there. She's like, okay, you have mine now. We're connected. Okay, and then she'll just send you a text randomly being like, just checking in. What's going on? How are you? We don't live in the same state, so we don't really get to see each other a lot. And so I think that one of the ways to make really great connections is by just staying connected and also like jumping to it and not being afraid. You know, she's so good at really managing that vulnerable moment where you're like, do I ask for their number? Is it weird to ask for their number? Is it like, what is like, how do you friendship? It's like in this day and age, it's hard. And so, but she is so bold about being like, yeah, I need to have your number. Like, we need to make sure we're connected. And that is also just a way of, you know, I think also when you know that connections make you feel safe or make you feel good, that's a way of showing yourself care, is by being like, okay, I need to make sure I'm connected with the people that make me feel good, or the people I have like a pleasant vibe with. And so I will say that having that boldness is definitely something, if you can catch that from Aly today, I'd try to catch it.
Well, and I caught that from you, Cleo, the first time we met. I got an email like almost immediately, and that connection is really important. I want to dig in a little bit deeper to that, because I think each of you, in your own way, you strike a wonderful balance between your public platform and your private lives. But I know that that can't always be very easy. And so when you've got people looking for you for inspiration, for advice, and you're in those moments where you're lost, where you are feeling disconnected, where you are feeling the pressure of a lot of eyes on you or a lot of expectation about what you're going to be doing next, or kind of the feeling that performative space. Can you all just kind of like talk a little bit about what you do to bring yourself back to center, or to remind yourself that you're allowed to be flawsome? I heard somebody say that earlier, but really in those in-between spaces where you've got a lot of pressure. You know, I was thinking about this question specifically because I was watching that Beyonce clip on repeat, right? And everybody was like, hypothetically thinking about all the things that she was feeling. But I thought, when you get to a space of real influence, which I know a lot of you in the audience want to have influence and impact, and there is a price that comes with that, where you become sort of viewed as less than a person in a lot of ways, right? People tend to stand for something, or your latest post, or your last endorsement, or whatever it is, right? There's a chance to get disconnected the more high profile you become. And so I just wanted to kind of bring it down to like, how do you strike that balance between a lot of people looking for you for something, perhaps on days where you don't feel like giving it?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And I think I almost feel how what Aly said, it's like, if you can't find 5 minutes, you have to find an hour. And definitely last year, I didn't find my balance as naturally, figuring out how I feel like kind of I was doing maybe a lot of meet and greets and my energy was taken almost, but it wasn't. It was, my love tank was being filled. And so I had to kind of always remember that mind shift, and instead trying to absorb and see that as such a positive thing rather than potentially an exhausting thing, because it can momentarily feel exhausting, but then when you realize it's not even someone wanting to take anything from you. They just want to be seen. They just want to be heard. And that's a privilege for me to be able to potentially give that to them. So I don't take it lightly, but I also make sure that I'm checking in and I'm giving myself that me time, that space, that self-care. I travel a lot, so flying is actually something I sometimes look forward to, because I just switch off and I don't talk to anyone. And sometimes that's great to just kind of incubate and be with myself and meditate and And I know Aly's really into meditating, and I think that that is a real gift that we can reward ourselves with when we've been giving and working and creating and doing all these things. It's that time to gift back to ourselves.
Any other tips or tricks?
I would say, back to what Cleo was saying, the worst thing that when you ask for something, I was with one of my friends last night, and we were with a group of people, and there was somebody that did the job that's her dream job, and she said, is it inappropriate if I tell her that that's really what I want to do? And I said, the worst thing that happens is she just will say, she just won't want to talk about it. But the worst thing, I think you should never be afraid to ask for what you want or what you need, because the worst thing that you'll be told is no. And then maybe that's not the right person, and you can go to somebody else, or you can learn from it. So, even if today you go and ask for someone's number, the worst thing that they're going to say is no. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just, maybe that person is not in a space where they're willing to take on another friend because there's something going on or whatever. But I think for me, what I've learned is really paying attention to the people that are giving you energy when you're hanging out with them, and the people that are taking away your energy. And I know it's a little bit different than what you said, but I think just really the people that you're surrounding yourself with, the friends, do they make you feel confident about yourself, or are they judging you and making fun of you and being unkind to you? Hopefully it's not that. But I think really paying attention, and I've learned that from meditation, is really being in tune with myself of, after I am hanging out with someone, do I feel just so depleted and stressed out and anxious, or do I feel happier and more excited and more energized? And obviously not every day you're going to feel great. That's life is ups and downs, but I think it's really paying attention to that and being honest about what you need. For example, for me, having shared my story so publicly, I have so many people sharing their stories with me, and I think sometimes people forget I'm still dealing with what happened to me. I'm still in therapy, and I have a really hard time hearing stories that are in graphic detail, or, if there's a story in the news, I try to follow as much as I can, but if it's in graphic detail, because the media puts so much pressure on people that if you don't go into graphic detail, you won't be believed, which is absurd. But so if there's an article and it goes into graphic detail, I skip over it. And, I know everyone's obsessed with Game of Thrones. I don't watch that show because it's very graphic and violent. And my little sister, who is 8 years younger than me, she watches it, and she tells me not to watch it, which is pretty funny. I always ask my younger sister, if I can watch something, and usually she's like, that'll be too scary for you. You can't watch it. But I think it's just about knowing what you need and what works for you. So instead of watching Game of Thrones, I've been watching Friends, which is just easy and fun, and it's
that
happy.
Couldn't be the most polar opposite
so
choice.
Opposite. But you just have to do what works for you and what makes you happy. And so if I'm with a fan, and sometimes I'll be, it might be on a day where I just feel I don't want to think about it, I don't want to talk about it, and somebody in the market, might go into graphic detail with me. And I've learned in therapy, not feeling guilty, saying, I support you and I want to hear your story, but when you go into graphic detail, I won't be able to function for a week. I won't be able to get it out of my head. So I used to feel really guilty about that, and I would be nervous if I said, when you go into graphic detail, it affects me, that they would feel that I didn't care. And so I've learned sort of practicing ways to let them know that I still support them, I hear them, I want to be there for them.
And that's a really healthy boundary. I mean, that's really what you're talking about, right? Is that for us to be
But
able to
it's hard.
establish that.
It's
of course.
very hard because you also, I feel the pressure to be very supportive to them, but when people go into graphic detail, it makes me really paranoid.
Yeah.
It's when you have 3 people in an hour tell you graphic detail, it's hard not to be paranoid. So it's learning to protect myself without feeling guilty and setting that boundary. But they always understand, so at least I hope. But yeah, just being honest and being truthful of letting people know. I don't think anybody hopefully would argue or not understand when you say graphic detail is triggering. I think people can understand that, but it's learning the self-love and learning it's okay to ask for what you need.
Yeah.
I think also when you have a platform that is public, it's also important, one of the ways that you can always kind of be yourself in that platform is by, if you partner with any brands or you endorse anything, they're people who are working with you for you, not for how many people follow you or how many people's eyeballs are on what you see or do. you do that by getting to know brands or people before you work with them, so that they're there for your voice, they're there for your story, they're there for the way that you have built your community, rather than saying anyone reducing you to a number, or anyone reducing you to an algorithm, or and I think that in that space, it's also always okay if you'll allow yourself to not be superwoman. I always say with the women who work with me, it's like, I don't want to be superwoman because she's not real. And so and that has to be okay, because that is just the truth. And so when it comes to whether it's having the answer or having that one piece of advice during a tough time, if I don't have that, I don't put pressure on myself to have that. And a lot of the times I'll talk about how I don't have it. Maybe I'll write something that says, sometimes you have the feeling, but you don't have the words. And I think that making sure that you're always telling the truth to your audience about who you are, and being honest with your community, and reminding them that you are human. I don't think that, especially the women on this stage, we are really fighting for the online world to be a place where you accurately get to know people, not that you get to know these created versions of people that are, created and then praised at the expense of your insecurities. One of the things that's so important to me that I won't, whether it's partner with someone or sit on a stage with someone or work with anyone, is that if that company or those people, make money at the expense of women's insecurities, then that's a hell no for me. And I think that when you know what your hell no's are and you know what your hell yeses are, then it's really easy for you to make decisions with your platform. And I'd also say that the no's, we have to allow those to be just as big of a blessing as the yeses.
Yes.
Because for every no that every door that didn't open for you led you to the door that did. And when that yes comes, and it's a hell yes, it feels so good and it feels so right. And you know that only all of those divine no's got you there.
Yep. Yeah. I love that you say that, Cleo. We're all sort of yesing up here. So I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. I've never, ever worked for anybody else. Minus maybe 5 days I worked for Learner. Do you remember Learner? Everybody here is too young. Thank you for the people over the age of 35 who remember that. But 5 days in retail, that was it. And then I knew I needed to start my own business. And I knew I wanted to work at the intersection between social change and business and marketing and representation. But I didn't know how to do that. Nobody did that 25 years ago. That wasn't a path that I could see amazing people publicly, certainly, because I'm also will age myself and I'm super pre-internet. So rotary phones, baby. I'm sure at one point this will make a comeback because everything is coming back. But
I'm about to get one of those.
Thank you, Al. See how supportive Aly is as a friend?
I want to find a light blue one, but I'm having trouble finding it.
Dude, I probably have one in my basement from childhood that I can bring to you. But I remember going on that journey, and much to what you were saying, Cleo, and everybody here, and we've talked about this, Iskra, as well, rejection is God's protection in a lot of ways for those moments. But the between the no's and the hell yeses, that's almost like a vibrational feeling, too, that you get in your body. And, by the way, you cultivate it over time. Because I think we also have to have compassion for ourselves to know, look, we've got big ambitions, big goals, big dreams. You're going to say yes to things that immediately you're going to change your mind about. And I want us to get more comfortable feeling like we've got the power to change our minds and the ability. And I have a wonderful advocate who will say to me, was it true in the time that you said it? Was it true for you when you said yes? And I would say, yes. Is it true for you now? No. That's also okay. Right, to be able to switch like that. So before we go to Q&A, what I wanted to do, because our hosts for today, both Aerie and Create and Cultivate, and especially Create and Cultivate has this wonderful collaboration over competition, which I think we can't repeat enough about sort of a mindset in life. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how you all sort of stay focused on the values that are most important to you right now. So if we could just go down the road, and if you could share for me, Iskra, 2 values that are really non-negotiable for you in your life right now, just what's true for you right now. We talked about the missions we're going for, but what are your values that you hold true to that I could come up and give you all the things your ego thinks you want, but if it was going to violate those values, it was going to be a hell no, not a hell yes. What would those be?
I think the first one would definitely be acceptance. I think we're in a world where people aren't accepting enough of each other and their differences. So I think number one would be working with brands or being friends and being in a relationship where someone truly accepts you as you are. And then I think the other one would be not being perfect. Like, I don't want anyone to expect me to be perfect. I don't want a brand to think that they're perfect. I want everyone to realize they're progressing. And there's always room to grow and evolve and be better. And I think those really are really important values for me right now.
Excellent. Aly, what are 2 values for you?
I think self-compassion, because I think taking time for yourself and just being okay with where you are right now, not beating yourself up if you're going through a hard time. Sometimes I beat myself up over just feeling really depleted and exhausted. And I've been to like 5 different doctors, got blood drawn, and they're always just like, you've had a really crazy couple of years, just be okay with where you are. And I think just really actually letting that sink in and realizing there's nothing wrong with me. It's okay to be tired, and just learning to listen to your mind and your body. And I think also focusing on the way that I talk to myself. One of my friends was just texting me today saying she feels so tired, and so I was giving her advice: be okay with where you are. It's okay, listen to your mind and your body. It's okay. And then I thought I should probably say the same thing to myself. So I would say treat yourself and talk to yourself the way that you would talk to somebody you love and care about. The way that you talk to yourself, the way you look at yourself in the mirror, you probably would not say those same things to your daughter or your son. If you don't have kids, I don't, but your future kids or somebody that you really love or care about, you wouldn't say those things. So just remember that if you're being unkind to yourself, try to shift it. Perception is reality. So be kind to yourself, be loving, and be accepting, as you said, and know that wherever you are in this moment, it's okay wherever you are. And just be patient, just as it takes a really long time. When you go through a hard time, you're not going to feel better immediately, and there's kind of ups and downs. And my acupuncturist says being aware is a blessing and a curse, because some days I feel so good, and then other days I don't feel as good. It's a little bit hard to be positive, just as everybody. And the positive I take from that now is that because I have days where I feel so much better, because I'm actually putting in the work, the days where you have a harder time actually feel even worse. But if I wasn't taking care of myself, I wouldn't know what the difference was. Because when you're going through a hard time, you kind of just feel like sometimes like blah, and you're just sort of feeling like a tough time all the time. So when you have those good days or those bad days, make me realize, wow, I can't remember the last time I felt like this, or it's been a week or two. So I try to, instead of being mad at myself, I actually focus on I'm doing better.
Great.
One mantra I have that keeps me feeling secure during insecure times is unafraid of what it looks like. Because a lot of the times we kind of forget that you can know what you want, but you do have to kind of surrender to how you get there and what it looks like to get there. Mm-hmm. And so I know that someone had an intention earlier that is about manifesting the life they want and manifesting their goals. And part of manifesting has to do with allowing for that to come to fruition however it's meant to be. And I think a lot of the times if you're someone like a lot of the women on this stage, there wasn't a path for you to follow. You really took a machete and created that path. And when you do that, and if you make that choice with your life, you have to be unafraid of what it looks like to reach your goals. Mm-hmm. And so I think that when I am unafraid of what it looks like to get there, then I can allow for the no's to feel okay when the no's come. Yep. I can allow for myself to be in a space of gratitude when the yeses are there. And then I can allow myself also to make sense of the path later, and then allow myself to really take in that wisdom so that I can then apply it to my next goal. And then secondly, to that, speaking of the goals, is that I think that a lot of the, in your mission it's really important to consistently have many goals and connect them and reset them. A lot of the time we get fatigued, or we get our dream job or get our dream experience, and then we're in it for a while and we're like, I just don't understand why I'm not happy. And a lot of the time that's because we didn't set a new goal and connect that to the one we just met. And so to have as many goals as you'd like to have and constantly reset them and constantly connect them, I think is critical to finding a consistent wave of joy in your life. And I think also to make sure that your goals don't only have to do with you. When your goals for what you want to see in your life or in the world have to do with being an offering for other people, it's almost impossible not to feel good about them. It's almost impossible not to feel a sense of passion and purpose about moving through the world, because you're moving through the world knowing that you're not at the center of it. And I think a lot of the times we feel in this constant space of ego because we're the only ones that are the lead character in our own story, in our own book. So a lot of the times we can start to feel like everything revolves around us, because when we get up in the morning, we're thinking about our own hair or our own face or our own, what zipped this morning and what didn't. And I think when we can take a moment to say, I am one of many who are all connected for hopefully a greater purpose and a greater goal, then we also can ease out of an ego zone and get into a collective conscious zone of really creating the shifts we know we need to see on our planet.
This is why I appreciate so much. Let me wrap something really quick, because we can go. I'm looking at our clock ticking down. But
I just wanted to give an exercise from that I would like you to try at home, because it can be sometimes hard to visualize, or we might come away from today and be like, everyone said such amazing things, how can I put that into action? So one of the actionable things I would love you to do tonight is think about a car. So right now, maybe fear is driving your car. Maybe expectation is driving your car. I want you to put yourself in the driver's seat of this car. The car is life. Hopefully it's moving forward. What's the fuel you're putting into the car? Is it should? Is it what you think you should be doing, who you think you should be? Or is it purpose? Is it passion? Is it all of these things that you really want to create or do? So I want you to literally kind of draw it, visualize it. Maybe this doesn't work for you. It certainly works for me. I'm a visual person. And I keep thinking, and I go back to the car. And I also have 6 month, 1 year goal settings, but it always goes back to that. And like I said, maybe I'm driving through the jungle. Maybe there's obstacles. Maybe there's things. Maybe I hit the brakes. There's all these things, but I'm consistently trying to be the driver in my own car. The car is filled with people I love. I'm never alone. And I'm going to end there because Jess needs me to.
Because I'm giving her I got you. But here's the thing. But this is what I love, actually, what I was going to say, and I'll tie those both together beautifully, because this is why I love working with these women and having this opportunity. This is a process. This is not a product. This doesn't kind of come out fully baked, right? So everything that you heard today, just to add an extra layer of context, is that the change that we seek oftentimes is internal before it manifests externally. And I think everything that you all talked about today is so important, because individual processes are harder to share sometimes on social in little quick bites. So to be able to have a conversation, to hear how people are experiencing both the ups and the downs and setting those dreams, and all of these things are teachable skills. They're actionable. Speaking of action, we've just got a couple of minutes left, and I want to make sure we hear from your voices. So we've got a runner in the audience, this wonderful woman with her beautiful Aerie t-shirt on. What questions, comments, ideas would you like to add? I see a hand up over here on the end.
There's no wrong questions either, by the way. Don't be afraid.
Hi.
Hi.
First of all, obviously, you guys are all very inspiring and aspiring, and what you've built takes a lot of time and energy and commitment, right? So I guess my question is for the average person, is there any time that you had doubts about the path that you were on? And if you did, how did you overcome that?
I mean, 1,000,000%. I was just feeling through the dark half of the time, just hoping that I would stumble on, the answer to many things. I did a lot of crying at one point in my life. I remember being in a mentally abusive relationship and being kind of trapped by that for a very long time. My self-worth was trapped in that. My self-worth was very much tied to my size for many years of my life. And freeing myself from that was one of the most terrifying things, because I didn't know what life could look like. And the thing is, when you set yourself free, life is terrifying because it's so big and it's so filled with possibility. So I think that self-doubt is going to be part of your journey. Don't be afraid of it. Just realize that, it's going to keep making you better and questioning yourself, but just remember that you can always ask for help. I think that's a really, really major one for me. I was too scared to ask for help a lot of the time, or I was afraid, or I didn't even want to show that I didn't know the answers to my own life. And I think that's so important. I think it's amazing that Aly goes to therapy, because we need to talk to people. We need to know that we don't have all the answers, and we're not perfect, and we're still going to figure this out, even in, we could be sitting here together, and I'm sure that we're going to have completely different answers in a few years' time, or completely different outlooks.
Yeah. I was going to say, if I can jump into that as well, I noticed your language, you said for the average person.
Yeah,
And so what I might challenge in that a little bit is that I think in this world where specialty, especially if you've got a large platform or a large audience, or you see that success, we can tell that story to ourselves that we're not that. So we're average versus above average, right? What I would love to do is kind of shift that language, because I think anybody who's going for a dream, be it whatever it is, starting your own business, innovating inside the company that you're currently working for, thinking about making your side hustle become real, whatever it is, doubt is a necessary ingredient, I think, to do some of the self-checking we were talking about. I think for me, where I work at a high-stakes game of trying to change large industries with a lot of money and a lot of people who make decisions that I don't get to drive all the time, I kind of navigate from the passenger seat. Doubt is a constant element there. Am I doing enough? Am I being enough? Is the result strong enough? Is this the way I want to spend my life? Look, we don't get out of this world alive. None of us do. Hate to spoil the ending for us, but it doesn't happen. So I think just like challenging our language to know we're in it together, each of our paths will be very different. And to me, doubt is a really important ingredient to embrace versus to run from, because I feel like that's where we get the good juju inside, where we're like, we know what path we're supposed to be on, and also to challenge to make sure we want to stay there. I know we have one more question.
Well, I just want to add really quick.
For sure.
I think also it's important to know that there's no switch that flips. A lot of the times people will say to me, like, how did you, I really want self-love. How did you, get to self-love? And self-love is really a practice. It's an everyday thing that you have to commit to and recommit to. And I think also knowing that, there's no if this, then I won't have doubt. Yeah. So the second that we also know that doubt is something that will continuously come up to challenge us, and also there's something biological about doubt that comes up so that it makes sure that we're making the right decisions. Yep. There's a part of doubt that does keep us safe. That doesn't mean it's worth investing in a major way, but it is worth acknowledging. And you're not going to say, once I get my book published, then I won't have doubt anymore about being able to call myself an author. Or once I do this, then I won't have doubt about this or that. And so I think also in relaxing into knowing that it doesn't go away, just how we were talking earlier about how that one little voice in your head that's negative does not go away or suddenly doesn't exist, but you can have a more powerful voice within you that's like, you're not driving this car, or you're not driving this ship. So I think that also there's something to me that, is relaxing about knowing, okay, you're here forever. I get it. I have doubt, you and me doubt, you're here, you're within me always, but I don't have to be completely identified with you. And then there's no single person anywhere, whether you're on this platform or any other platform, that isn't also moving through it the same.
Bingo. I think we've got one question down here to wrap on. I wish we could all have a giant sleepover and keep talking.
I know.
Hi, ladies.
Hi.
You guys are all so beautiful and inspirational. So
are you.
It's an honor to be here. And all the women here in the audience. I wanted to know, what is the best piece of advice a woman has given you, and how has that shaped you into the woman you are today?
Excellent.
I'll keep it short and simple, but it was from my mom, and she said, if you don't ask, you don't get. And she kept it pretty simple, but to the point. And I know you touched on that, Aly, as well. And that goes in everything in life. That goes from work, if you don't ask, you don't get. Relationships, you've got to be able to speak to your partner and say, you know what, these are the things I need. I would love if we can work together to get to them, and vice versa. Please tell me. So I think that, I'll keep it simple. You don't ask, you don't get.
Love it. That's just our clock telling us we're wrapping down, so we'll make this brief.
I think that, I guess this would be kind of a combination of advice I actually got from your book and my therapist. I think that it's really important to know your value and to know what you want in life. And if you are willing to, I would recommend when you leave here, whenever you feel like it, to really take time and really get to know what you want and who you want to be with, whether it's the friends you surround yourself with, whether it's the partner that you want to be with. If you could write on a piece of paper the person that you feel that you deserve to be with, would it be the person that you're with now? And I think it's about really knowing your value and really getting to know what makes you happy. Where would you live? Who would you surround yourself with? Who would you live with? Would you have a dog? Would you hang out with this person or that person? What would you do for work? And really getting to know what you want. And it's not what other people want you to do or what other people want you to be. It's really being authentically you. And if you are authentically yourself and somebody doesn't like that, that's not your problem. And I think that what I have seen a lot really in the last few years with there's different positives and negatives to social media, but the negative part is how judgmental people are. And if somebody is judging you and you feel you're a good person, then that's what's important. I think our world is so judgmental, and what I view is like, as long as you're not hurting somebody else and your intentions are not bad, then we have no right to judge other people. We live in a world where people are so judgmental. So just holding on to that and knowing your worth and knowing what you want and not being afraid to go out and get it. And also
Great.
to what you said, if you're afraid, in my opinion, that means you're doing something right. Because I think that for me, obviously coming forward or competing at the Olympics is terrifying. Even being up here, it's not always comfortable because you're just, am I saying the right thing? No one's perfect. And, I think it's just about really sticking up and doing something that you believe in or you believe for yourself is not easy. But when you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation where you feel a little bit nervous or timid, I think that's where amazing things happen. If you're always comfortable, you're never going to have this amazing thing. If I was afraid, of course, competing at the Olympics was scary, but if I didn't go for it, I wouldn't have had that experience. So I think it's okay to be afraid and knowing that that's normal, and it's okay to be wherever you are in this moment.
I can't think of the best advice, but I'll just think of something that came to mind. And I didn't put this in my book, but maybe I should have. One day my brother and I were sitting in my kitchen in Louisiana at my mom's house talking about haters. And my mom is like cooking something and she like looks up from the pan and she goes, "Haters? What are haters? I have no idea who hates me. I don't hang out with those people." And so I always think of that as some of the best advice I've ever gotten, because you're like, exactly, like sometimes I think we don't realize that we're moving through the world looking for people to criticize us because we don't believe in our own power and we don't believe in our own place in the world or feeling like we're enough. So we actually look around, whether it's on the internet or in social spaces, for people who might reject us or tell us that we're not enough. And so I think also to decide to actively be around people who help us to believe and know for certain that we are enough and we are okay with where we are is so critical. And so, yeah. Sorry, haters.
I will add, outside of advice, it's a mantra, and I say it every day, multiple times a day, and so does my husband. I deserve the best, and I accept it now. And when I'm in doubt and when I'm in fear, I say it more often. So it's language for me. The best advice I've been given is how you think informs how you speak informs how you feel, and then ultimately how you act. So that mantra is my daily go-to. Thank you guys so much. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.